What is going on, my fellow degenerates, and welcome to the best betting show of the week for MMA. This is the Friday Undefeated post-weigh-in show brought to you by Pub Sports Radio. We are taking one final look at the fighters as they step on the scale and face off with each other for UFC Vegas 47, trying to find just that extra little edge, make sure that they pass the eye test, see if anybody's sweating a little bit too much up there on the scale today or looking afraid as they stare deeply into their opponent's eyes. We're going to try and turn that extra little edge into some cash. That's what we do here on the Friday show. Make sure you smash that like button for me, and let's dig straight on into this bad boy. First fight on the docket, Malcolm Gordon taking on Denise Bondar. Gordon came in at 126. Bondar came in 125 on the dot. Malcolm Gordon was the last guy to make the scale today. I honestly didn't think he was going to show. It got to that point. He was sucked out bad. I mean, you can see every single fiber in his body. His cheeks were popping out like crazy. That's what it takes for this guy to make this weight class. And honestly, he's one of these dudes on the scale that just never really looks that good. We talk about him being chinny and a little fragile all the time. Maybe that weight cut's got a little something to do with it, but he gave a good flex. He's all cut up. Dennis Bondar, on the other hand, gave a solid flex. He had some wide, crazy eyes up there on the scale today, but he was very relaxed, especially for a kid making his UFC debut. Didn't look like he had the jitters or anything. Good, intense face-off. Both guys looked like they were confident. They sized up really well. Bondar had an evil little smile that was, little curl coming up on his corner of his mouth. What I did in this spot, I decided not to pick a side. I'm going under. I took the fight doesn't go the distance at minus 160. I'm laying 1.6 units to win one on that one. I just need this one to finish. With the submission upside of Malcolm Gordon, we can't necessarily count him out, but with that chin, we can almost guarantee that he's going to go down to a legitimate prospect like Denise Bondar. But Bondar's got a couple holes in his game. I wouldn't put it past him slipping up and giving up his neck, leaving an arm out there just a little too long, and that's the kind of thing Malcolm Gordon can snatch up. So I think Bondar's going to murder Gordon, but I'll pay the extra little bit of chalk so that I get that little bit just in case Malcolm Gordon pulls up the upset, minus 160. Jason Witt taking on Phil Rowe. Witt came in at 171, Rowe 170 and a half. And I'll be honest, guys, Witt looked bad. He did not look good on the scales to me today. And he looked really soft. For a guy that's like super short and super like broad and thick and muscular, usually we see him showing off a little bit more muscle. His body was a little soft this morning. He had to have the guy recheck the scale because he was this close to not quite making that 171. And like I said, he looked a little bit rough. I think he was doing everything he could to avoid the box of shame or heading back to the sauna. Didn't look happy about it. Phil Rowe on the other side looked fantastic. Now, Rowe, he caused some drama the last time out because he missed weight, and that was a big deal for some people. Myself doubled down on him and cashed out nicely because it was pretty apparent that he had cut the weight cut process a little early, and I thought he was going to have a little more giddy up in his step. Turned out to work out pretty well, but this time he was posting Instagram videos last night, being 5 pounds away from the limit and dancing around instead of cutting weight. Like, he is feeling himself today, and he gave a couple of extra Arnold Schwarzenegger style flexes on the scale. Like, Phil Rowe is really feeling himself right now. Very confident, looks good. The cut went smooth as ever. And honestly, I couldn't find a single thing to poke a hole in. His eyes weren't sunken in. He wasn't stretched out too thin. He didn't have a lack of balance. Like, I believe that this was the best cut that he's ever had. When they face off, this is that tall and long versus short and thick type of setup. We knew that was coming for this fight. Very respectful face-off. What I've done here is I've got 2.5 units on Phil Rowe at minus 125. The absolute world is piled on Jason Witt. Everybody's backing this guy. It drove that number down. Phil Rowe was starting at about minus 170 earlier this week when we all started talking about these fights, and as much as I wanted him to win and I wanted to be on that side, that number was just too much to ask because we know Witt is going to ground him a couple times and get some ground control time throughout this fight. So I couldn't lay minus 170. Minus 125? Hell yeah, sign me up for that one. I'll absolutely take that. Now, it looks like this line has actually started to head back the other direction. There's only minus 125 out there in 2 spots that I'm seeing anymore. He's minus 135 and minus 140 at most of the prominent books that are US based. A lot of other people seem to have been buying on this dip at minus 125, and now that line is headed back the other direction. Danilo Marques taking on Jailton Almeida. Danilo came in at 205.5. Almeida came in at 203, so under the limit, surprisingly enough. Danilo gave a big, deep breath on scale. Looked like he was in pretty good shape, trying to thirst trap everybody up there. Shorts were just a tad bit low, Danilo there, buddy. Jailton Almeida absolutely jacked. Like, holy crap, this kid. Abs popping like crazy. Gave a huge, confident flex, and these guys size up really well. You know, when you look at the numbers, Danilo Marques is supposed to have about a 2 or 3 inch height advantage here in this spot. And when they got face to face, it was damn near nose to nose. I mean, maybe he's got a 1 inch height advantage, but he doesn't have no 2 or 3 inch height advantage. These guys size up very, very well. And I was caught a little off guard by that. I got talked into a Dana White Contender Series fade bet by my co-host on Monday's show, so I am on Danilo Marques at plus 300, and I hate that bet. I am terrified. This is one of those ones where I identified the Dana White Contender Series fade angle and said, I don't want to step in front of Jailton Almeida with Danilo Marques, but doesn't take a whole lot to get me to back a plus 300 underdog, so here we are. I'm not going to cash out. I'm not going to, take anything off or hedge the other way or anything like that, but I'm just letting you all know I'm not a big fan of that bet anymore. And you can get Danilo at plus 330, plus 350 out there. The numbers still continued to go just the other way in this spot, so not comfortable whatsoever on that bet. Alexis Davis taking on Julija Stoliarenko. Davis came in at 135, Stoliarenko 135.5. Nice big smile from Alexis Davis. Normal Davis. Couldn't ask for much different. She's been here, done that. Stoliarenko on the other side looked very stoic on the scales. Again, out of the ordinary for her because she's had some big-time weight problems in the past, but she moved relatively well. She was a bit pale, so a little concerning there on that one, but she didn't fall over. She didn't need the box of shame. She made it today. She looked all right. When they face off, not an insignificant size advantage for Julija Stoliarenko. She's a decent bit larger than Alexis Davis. This is a spot where I expect the chalk to roll. I think Alexis Davis is going to be the one who manages to mind her P's and Q's on the mat, defend the submission attacks, control time up top, better striker. Like, I fully believe that Alexis Davis wins this fight, but minus 250 for her. Yikes. I mean, especially when your opponent has the ability to snatch up stuff on the ground and hit you with arm bars from guard and things like that, and has the size advantage, potential strength advantage. I'm not touching it. If I was going to bet anybody here in this spot, Davis would be the side, but I can't quite get myself to do it there. Marc-André Barriault taking on Chidi Njokuani. Marc-André came in at 184.5, Njokuani 185 on the dot. And Barriault, very stoic and solid on the scales today. Confident, quiet, confidence in himself. Chidi came in, gave a big smile, a bunch of extra flexes. He was feeling himself on the scales a little bit today too. Looked in fantastic shape, if I'm being honest with you. And then when they face off, Chidi's huge. Chidi is huge. Like, I've got a bet on Chidi. I got a bad number. I laid minus 110 on Chidi and Njokuani. That number immediately rebounded the other way, and you can get him at even money or plus 105 out there. It looks like that's getting tapped a little bit. He's down to minus 105 in some situations, but minus 110 is about the worst number you can possibly get on Chidi this week, and that's what I've got in my pocket. So not very proud of that. I like to be the guy getting the good number and beating the moves. But this is a spot where, honestly, I was a little bit uncomfortable on it, and I know Marc-André Barriault definitely still has, his same old game plan. He's going to press him up against the fence, try to slow down the pace, things like that. But the height significant difference here, and what usually comes with that is a potential strength difference. I am a little bit more confident in my bet. After seeing Chidi tower over this guy, I'm like, okay, all right. That's a nice little icing on the cake for a guy who made a bet and was a little nervous he made a bad one. It feels good to have the bigger man in the cage. So I'm feeling that one a little bit. I've only got 1.1 units on it. I'm not going to double down or anything like that. This should be a back and forth, very close fight. I think Chidi's probably going to have, the more fluid striking, score those points. And then if Marc-André Barriault isn't able to mix it up enough, the control time up against the fence, I don't think is going to be enough to get him the win. So it should probably play out relatively tight. Maybe this is a fight that you should simply pass on, but I did go ahead and bite on Chidi a little earlier in the week. Next up, Hakeem Dawodu taking on Mike Trizano. Dawodu came in at 146, Trizano 145.5, and Dawodu is shredded. This is another guy that just, physique is off the charts for Hakeem Dawodu. I don't know how he does it. Looking mean as ever, no issues whatsoever. Mike Trizano came in and gave a solid flex, rocking the American flag cowboy hat that he likes to, as is tradition on weigh-in day. Looked very, very good. When they face off, size advantage Trizano. And this is another one, almost a little bit like Chidi, where I kind of expected these guys to be 1-for-1. I kind of expected these guys to go, nose to nose here in this spot. And instead, I've got a nice, exciting little pop on the size side of things for Mr. Trizano. He definitely has that slight size advantage, and that feels good having that 2-unit shot. I got plus 160 on Trizano in my pocket. Shout out to my guy Gianni the Greek. Watched his On the Line betting show for the UFC, and he really likes Trizano in this spot as well. That line is crashing. He's down to plus 145, plus 140 in a lot of spots, so it is coming back down to earth. Feels really good to have gotten the best of that number, and really you're not going to find any more of that number out there for Mike Trizano. A lot of love is coming in here on this spot, and I really like it. Again, 2-unit shot on Mike Trizano here for me, and busting out the tinfoil hat, folks. It's time. It's been a couple weeks since we made use of the tinfoil hat, but I think Trizano's going to knock freaking Hakeem out. I think he's going to be the first one to put this man down. I think everyone's going to be very, very surprised on Saturday when he does it. Probably going to be sprinkling that round 3 prop. I think Trizano is going to show off a little bit on Saturday. Next up, we got Miles Johns taking on John Castañeda. Johns came in at 135.5, Castañeda 136, and Miles Johns wore the sunglasses. Needed the tinfoil cap for that as well, because you all know how I feel about sunglasses on weigh-in day. You're hiding something. You don't come in rocking sunglasses on the scale unless you're trying to hide those cracked out, bloodshot, sunken in eyes. We know Miles Johns, another one of these little muscle monster types. He probably did need to hide that just a little bit, but he looked good, if I'm being honest. He was jacked as ever, looked in good shape, moved pretty well. Not too concerned, unfortunately. I was hoping I could, get a little bit more on Miles Johns here. But John Castañeda, he came in, and I'll be honest, even when I back a fighter, I don't ignore the signs, folks. He had some heavy eyes on the scale. Now, he is not a small man. When he faced off with Johns, he has a size advantage, and he is not a skinny person either. Miles Johns is usually the short and thick type. He's got that big old back on him, but Castañeda kind of met him in the middle there. I mean, he doesn't have quite as big of a back, but he is a thick man too. So he probably did have a little bit of a rough weight cut, did Castañeda, but he gave a solid flex. He was cut up. He moved well. I mean, it's one of those ones where I think he probably had a bit of a rough time, but not enough for me to say that it's going to impact his performance. Now, I am already on John Castañeda, and I got the best number by a landslide on this one. I got in early, 1 unit, plus 200. I wish I had gone 2 units on this one. I really do, just because the market move on this one I got way out ahead of, and he's come all the way down to plus 155 in some spots, and the money is still coming in on John Castañeda. So there is a little bit of concern that maybe this is one of those public dog type of situations where we're all seeing the same thing and we're just all going to be wrong and donating to the bookies here. But at least I got that plus 200 number in my pocket. I actually really like Castañeda in this spot. I don't think much of Miles Johns personally. So if you're looking to potentially tail or get some action going based off of this show, if you're getting that plus 155, plus 160 number, I still don't hate it. I think you're fine to jump in on this one if you want to be a part of the movement. Julian Erosa taking on Stephen Ocho Peterson. Erosa came in at 145.5, and Peterson, whew, today's big miss, baby. 149, missed by 3 pounds on the scales today. Now, Juicy J looked good, a little bit sucked out. No issues, though. About the same. Classic Juicy J, not much to be expected there. Peterson, though, he was trying to flex before they called off the weight, which is always funny. When the guy misses weight by a significant margin and then tries to show off on the scales instead of being, I don't know, humble or apologetic, I always kind of laugh about it. That I'm like, dude, sit down. Like, you just missed weight for a contracted fight. Sit your ass down. He tried the box of shame. No change. Didn't help. Still 3 pounds over. Not sure what that was all about. It's not like he was going to drop 3 pounds by taking his shorts off or anything like that. They face off. There's a significant height and reach advantage here for Julian Erosa. But Ocho was talking to him, man. He got up there and was talking a bunch of shit, which again, I'm like, why are you talking? You missed weight, bro. Like, you can't be up there talking trash to your opponent when you came in messing up on these scales. Peterson's got a huge head, though. No wonder he's so tough to knock out. He's only been knocked out once, but when you see him face off with Julian Erosa, you can see why he's hard to knock out, because his head is about twice the size of Erosa's. This is another spot where I like Erosa to win, but I don't like this number. I mean, he's a 3-1 favorite, and you've got a guy that's had chin issues in the past versus a guy who is incredibly durable and just doesn't go away throughout the fight. I think Julian Erosa outskills Steven Peterson everywhere, but even a guy like Peterson, who's not a super knockout threat, can always just hit him on the button, and that could end the night. So definitely Julian Erosa should win. I'm not touching the minus 3-1 in this spot, though. Bryan Battle taking on Tresean Gore. Battle came in 185.5. And Gore came in at 186. Nice solid flex from Bryan Battle. Tough body transformation. You know, I've talked about this before. Whenever you see these guys and they go through the Ultimate Fighter house, they're making that transition from amateur to pro. And in the next couple of fights, you see their bodies turn into something completely different. And that's what we're seeing here with Bryan Battle. He's not this soft, cuddly dude that we saw on the Ultimate Fighter. He's starting to show some muscle. He's starting to show some abs popping. He flexes. You see a significant difference. He definitely is going through that transformation. Now, Tresean Gore, he's the exact opposite. He's a guy that was a muscle tank before he got on the show. So no change there. He looked good. He looked fine. Screamed, let's go on the scales. This is going to be a good fight. I mean, this is a battle. And Battle's got the height advantage here. Gore stepped in and was talking hard on him. I mean, it looked like there was a little bit of bad blood there because Battle refused to shake hands afterward. I mean, one of those interesting spots where I feel like Gore was talking shit and then wanted to, like, buddy afterward. Now, I'd be like Battle too. I'm like, nah, bro, like, what? You were just saying you were going to kill me and my family or something, and now you want to shake hands? No, that's not how this works. This is a spot where, once again, I have beaten a small line movement. I am on Bryan Battle. And I want to say I got plus 140. I think I got plus 140 or plus 150. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes here. But I did jump in on Bryan Battle. I like him here as the underdog. He's now sitting about plus 130 or plus 120 even in some places. They opened up this line essentially at a pick'em, with Bryan Battle being like an even money or a plus 105 underdog. And it was all the love on Tresean Gore that drove that line the other way. And now here, right before fight time, it's just headed back the other direction. I think the opening line was much more accurate. I absolutely think that this is more of a pick'em price. So getting that plus 140, plus 145 type of number, I think there's a ton of value on Bryan Battle there, and he's just being disrespected. Now, when you get down to the plus 120, plus 125, you're talking a 20-cent difference, a 20-cent edge on this kind of a number. I don't know that you necessarily want to get involved at that point because we don't know so much about these guys. And just from a sheer value standpoint, I don't know that we can confidently say that you're getting a ton of value on plus 120 in this spot unless you think that Bryan Battle should have been like a minus 150 favorite. If that's your call, I don't hate it. I actually think Bryan Battle deserves to be favored here. I don't hate that whatsoever. But you got to be pretty confident about that to find any value at the current number. So maybe the pass is kind of the best option in this case because we got a lot of questions about Tresean Gore and what he's going to look like on Saturday. Sam Alvey taking on Brendan Allen. I know y'all were waiting for this one. Sam Alvey came in at 205. Allen 205 on the dot as well. Yes, this is a catch weight. Brendan Allen came in on short notice, filling in this slot, and they agreed to a 205 instead of a 185-pound fight. Classic Sam on the scales. Big old smile. Looked good. And, you know, he's one of these guys that's always got a soft bod. You know what I mean? Even when he cuts down to 185, he's never shredded. He's never ripped. He's just not built that way. So at 205, definitely looked a little bit soft and flabby, but honestly, he looked much more filled out. He's much healthier at 205. Sam fought at 205 for a long time, and it was fighting the monsters like Superman Span that sent him down to 185. Brendan Allen, he came in looking soft himself. You know, we know he's taking this fight on short notice, and if you listen to his interview, he rolled off the couch for this one. He literally just jumped up and said, I'll take that fight, and he looks like it. He is not nearly as cut up as we're used to seeing him, and he's a natural 185er. When they faced off, Sam Alvey has a size advantage, folks. Like, this is the first time in a long time that Sam is fighting somebody that he is legitimately bigger than. And then at 205, I actually think that tends to favor Sam. This is a spot where I've been staring all week. I'm begging myself, don't do it. Like, I always bet on Sam Alvey. I had a bet on Sam Alvey against Phil Hawes. And then when that fight fell out, I didn't reload. And now I'm sitting here looking at this thing, and Brendan Allen, who's a guy that's been known to make mistakes. Sam Alvey, a guy that's got that great takedown defense. Brendan Allen, a guy that's been clipped and hurt and put down before. Sam Alvey, a guy that's got a significant size advantage here in this spot. I mean, if Brendan Allen doesn't finish Sam Alvey and he doesn't do it early, there's a good chance that this thing gets ugly when it gets extended. And if Brendan Allen slows down or gets tired, Sam's the type of guy that can clip him and put him away. It looks like there's a little bit of market resistance out here. Whenever Sam gets up around plus 360 or so, that's when the money starts coming the other way. You can get him about plus 330, plus 310. Those are kind of the predominant numbers right now. There is a rogue plus 380 sitting out there somewhere. But honestly, Sam Alvey anywhere at plus 300 or above in this particular spot. I am so tempted, folks. I know you all know that I'm tempted on Sam Alvey at that number, but especially seeing that he is going to have the size advantage for once, and the fact that he's facing a flawed opponent that's rolled off the couch. If these two had full camps, full training camps, and both of them were facing off at 185, it'd be a different story. I'd be saying Brendan Allen all day because he had time to prepare. He had time to game plan. Without having time to prepare a game plan, Brendan Allen's going to come in and do what he always does, and that's look for the takedown. Sam ain't giving up a takedown. We know he's got 80% takedown defense. If Brendan Allen's coming in on short notice and he doesn't have a game plan, he's going to start swinging. This guy just got knocked out a couple months ago. So now he's potentially not in shape. He's less durable, and he's facing off against a guy who does have a full camp and is basically just getting the benefit of not having to cut weight on Saturday. Like, there's some reasons to like Sam Alvey right now at this number. At this number, again, like, you know, if this was plus 150, I'm not having this conversation. But plus 300, it's a little crazy. I haven't made the bet yet, folks. I know you're all waiting for it. Give me a follow on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. I've got almost exclusively underdogs this week, so it would just be icing on the cake if I ended up throwing a couple shekels on my guy Sam Alvey. So give me a follow over there and see if I end up pulling that trigger or not. I'm trying to stop myself. I'm an addict. I have a problem. Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Carlston Harris. Rakhmonov came in at 170.5. Harris 169. Nice. Shavkat Rakhmonov looking good, moved well, no issues. Carlston Harris, great shape. First to the scale, he was in a good mood. No problems, not sucked out. When these guys faced off, they were both absolutely draped in their flags. We got the dead animal on Rakhmonov's head. Like, it was a fun face-off. Shavkat definitely still has a bit of a height advantage here in this spot. This is going to be a hell of a fight. This is another one where I in no way want to stand in front of either of these men. So you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov as a minus 225-ish favorite, plus 180, plus 190-ish on Carlston Harris. Harris is the kind of guy that comes through as that kind of an underdog. He's got that crazy offensive upside. His grappling is solid. He's long. He's lanky. He hits like a truck. Like, this is the type of guy that can spoil your prospect. This is the kind of guy that absolutely can come in here and take somebody out. Rakhmonov, though, I think he's the goods. I think he's legit. He is so smooth on the feet, and he showed us in his last fight that he's got submission defense. He knows how to grapple. He knows how to stay safe. He can scramble. He's got reversals. I don't want to bet against either of these guys. I feel like it's a dog or pass spot just because of where this line is sitting, but I can't shake the feeling that if Carlston Harris doesn't get it done in the first round, I think he's going to be easy pickings for Shavkat after that. I'm kind of feeling a Shavkat Rakhmonov round 2 TKO is kind of how I'm feeling about this particular fight. No bet for me. Co-main event, Punahele Soriano taking on Nick Maximov. Both guys came in at 185. Soriano is thick. We know that's his thing, right? Looked great. No issues, no problems. Nick Maximov came in really a bundle of energy up there. Moving well, bouncing around. He was excited. He looked good. He's in great shape. Size advantage goes to Nick Maximov. And that's something that I honestly didn't expect to talk to you about when I sat down to make this video today. When these guys face off, I mean, part of the narrative for me is that Punahele Soriano is Francis Ngannou-esque. He's huge. He's powerful. He's strong. He just out-muscles people. He swings wild, and if he hits you, he's gonna hurt you. But he always has that size advantage. He's always the bigger man in the cage. He's not the bigger man in the cage this time. When these guys got next to each other, Maximov has a decent size advantage. And this guy is a big-time grappler. He's a dude that wrestled heavyweights in order to get into the UFC and had no problem moving around those big bodies. This is a spot where on Monday, I talked about how we don't really know about Punahele Soriano's grappling. He's never really been tested, but I think he's got enough to survive here. But this is that kind of spot where looking at the size. Size matters in MMA, folks. They are the same weight. Right now, they're weighing in at the same. But if Maximov is the bigger of the two, he's probably the stronger of the two. That doesn't always work out that way, but more often than not, size matters, and usually you've got a strength edge. So if he's got the strength edge, and he's the natural grappler, and he's got the cardio, now he's fighting on a full training camp, not short notice, in his natural weight class, not against a guy who is going to be a weight class or two above him. I kind of expect a better performance from him. So as long as he doesn't get KO'd dead in the first round, which don't get me wrong, it's Punahele Soriano, it could happen. I think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Nick Maximov, and I had to get involved. I got plus 160. I went ahead and threw a unit on him. Again, I've bet almost exclusively underdogs on this entire card. I think there's a lot of spots that are live for upsets, and this is where the tinfoil hat comes into play. I talked about this on Monday. When they picked this co-main event, there's a lot of spots. There's a lot of spots on this card that could have been the co-main event. I mean, Shavkat versus Carlton Harris, those two guys are both hyped to the gills. They absolutely could have been the co-main event. Bryan Battle versus Tresean Gore, that's the tough finale that never happened. How is that not the co-main event? No, but they chose to go with Nick Maximov and Punahele Soriano. Is it because they are so hyped up on Punahele Soriano, they think he can take this and run with it? No, it's because they got a Diaz brother. It's because they got Nick Maximov, who's repping the 209, a guy that absolutely can carry the banner from the Diaz brothers and take that fandom and move it forward with those rabid fans that they have. Make no mistake, the reason this is the co-main event is because Nick Maximov is fighting, not because Punahele Soriano is fighting. And yes, that's the tinfoil cap talking here. But when the UFC wants one of these two guys to win, I think I want to line up on that side. And I was a little scared to pull the trigger earlier in the week. I didn't really want to buy in. Seeing the size discrepancy, that was the icing on the cake. That's the last piece of the puzzle that I needed. I'm definitely betting Nick Maximov here. And honestly, like, this is one of those blind faith, Assassin's Creed, leaping from the top of the church building type of situations. I'm tempted to put more money on him. I'm tempted to put another unit or two on Nick Maximov just because all the stars seem to be aligning and the price is there. It's not a pick'em. We're getting that juice. We're getting that plus 160. I like the spot. I'm on Nick Maximov co-main event. Main event time. Jack Hermansson taking on Sean Strickland. Both guys came in at 185 and a half. Sorry about that. They're much bigger than 145. Jack is in crazy good shape, folks. I mean, holy crap. Jack Hermansson is a guy who I have had a difficult time handicapping and betting on throughout the course of his career. If you blindly bet Jack Hermansson, you have made some serious money over the last couple of years. He always gets lined as the underdog, and he is always competitive with the very best in the division. And here we've got Sean Strickland, a guy who's just classic Sean. He's not overly muscled, he's pretty slim. He doesn't do anything crazy. All this guy does is fight, and he's an absolute maniac. They size up really well. I mean, we're talking 1-to-1, but Jack Hermansson is absolutely in the best shape of his life. He is much thicker in this spot. He has that vascular muscle that shows that he had like a crazy good training camp leading up to this one. Either that or he got a damn good doctor leading up to this one. That's kind of the one thing that really concerns me because I think this is a Sean Strickland spot. And especially, when Sean Strickland was doing interviews and stuff like that, he called that he was going to TKO Jack Hermansson in like the 4th or the 5th round. Now that's classic Sean. He likes to play with his food. He likes to drag these fights deep and just beat people up for a while, but he never says he's actually going to finish them. So the fact that he's like, no, I'm taking this guy down. Like, there's something there that he doesn't like about Jack Hermansson, and he actually wants to get him out of there. I was already planning on sprinkling rounds 3, 4, and 5 for Sean Strickland because I kind of agree, and I think the TKO is going to be live here because of the chin issues we've seen from Jack. But seeing the kind of shape that Jack came in for the scales here today, I'm a little concerned that he's going to be able to get the grappling going. I'm a little concerned that he's actually going to have that grappling success. And he's the type of dude that even though we all like Sean Strickland's grappling, we know it's underrated, but we just don't see that much of it. Jack Hermansson might be better than him. If Jack is better than him, and if that, newfound muscle that he packed onto his body is any way something that he can carry deep in this fight, maybe this gets hairy. Maybe he gets more control time. Maybe he gets that top time. And if you're underneath Jack Hermansson, you absolutely can get choked out, TKO'd. I mean, there's a chance this line is wide. There absolutely is a chance that this line is too wide. And these are two guys that I, over the run of my betting, have kind of stayed away from because I've had such a bad read on them. It's one of those ones where thankfully I haven't stepped in the bear trap and been made to pay for the fact that I can't quite read these guys. I've done a good job of avoiding them. I thought about laying down the hammer on Sean Strickland. I thought about laying that minus 210 on Sean Strickland. And now I've got the heebie-jeebies about it. Come on Friday, seeing these guys face off, that line still really hasn't budged. It's kind of fluttered around the minus 225 spot. I think if anything, I'll take that Sean Strickland KO prop. I think maybe I'll sprinkle the rounds 3, 4, and 5 for Sean Strickland. I don't want to put any significant amount of money on this main event slot. I am picking Sean Strickland to win. I do think Sean Strickland to win, but he's got an opponent that's always been disrespected and underrated. He's maybe a little bit of a hype train right now, and that presents some value on Jack Hermansson. If you're doing parlays, folks, this is the type of main event that is perfect for a hedge spot. So if you do any type of, 4 or 5 leg parlays or stringing the whole fight together, what have you, anchor them all on Sean Strickland. And then if your parlay is alive once you get to that point of the night, you got plus 180, plus 190 on the underdog who's extremely live. That's the easiest way to guarantee you make money, and you risk less to win more on the underdog, so you can create a perfect hedge where you're actually able to lock up a decent amount of profit on that kind of a parlay. So if that's the kind of way you play MMA, this is a good week for you to do that. So I'm passing on the main event at this point, maybe throwing in a couple of sprinkles, but that's my action, folks. Of course, I'm going to tweet out my final card tomorrow first thing in the morning. Give me a follow at DieHard MMA Pod. Good luck on all your degenerate action. Thank you for rocking with me in the tinfoil hat crew. Let's roll. Can't wait. Let's have a damn good day tomorrow.